All right, so let's look at homework 3-3 and talk a little bit about when we multiply fractions and whole numbers. So we see that the campers in each cabin at Bear Claw Camp held a contest to see who could walk the farthest in one day. And we need to use this signpost over here to help us determine how far they walked. So I'm going to demonstrate item 3. It says the campers in cabin C walked 3/5 of the way to Fossil Cave. And then it wants to know how many miles did they walk. So first I need to look over here, and I notice that Fossil Cave was 9 miles. Well, if they walked 3/5 of the way to Fossil Cave, that means they walked 3/5 of that 9 miles. Okay, there's a couple of different ways that we can do this. I can draw it out and make each little mile separate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Uh-oh. One more. 9. Yeah, I know, it's not beautiful. And then I could say, okay, but if I made that into fifths here on the side, each one of these miles they walked 3/5 of. Oh yes, they did. 3/5 of 1 mile, 3/5 of 2 miles, 3/5 of 3 miles. Yep, 3/5, 3/5. 9 times they walked 3/5, and that would give me 3/5 plus 3/5 plus 3/5. Blah, 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 blah. Really, what I'm doing is saying, okay, I've got 9 groups of 3, which is 27. Whoops, there we go. And that 27 isn't 27 whole, but 27 fifths. 27 fifths. And that's one of the ways that we've looked at it in class to try and picture it. Now, 27 fifths is not a 5th grade answer. That's not how we show miles in our culture. So, we have to go ahead and simplify that. Well, how many 5/5 are there in 27? Well, there are 5, because 5 times 5 is 25, and that leaves us with 2/5 more. So it turns out cabin C walked 5 2/5 miles. Another way that we can look at this, and this is most likely to be the way that the moms and the dads, or maybe not, it might not be, but it's another way. If I have 3/5 of 9, I can think of 9 as 9 over 1, the fraction form of 9 whole, and I can multiply this numerator times numerator and denominator times denominator, and end up in that same initial place, still needing to simplify. All right, let's look at a different problem. So here we have a number line, just a naked numbers thing, and it says show 2/3 of 4 on the number line. Well, 2/3 of 4, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4 on this number line, which is super. If I need to show 2/3 of 4, this is where we have to maybe go back and think about the pictures we've done and the number lines we've practiced together. That means 2/3 of every whole number in that 4. So I'm going to mark 2/3 of this one. So that's 2/3 of that. And then I need 2/3 of the next whole. That's another 2/3. And then 2/3 of the next whole. That's another 2/3. And finally, I need 2/3 of that last whole number. 2/3, 2/3, 2/3, and 2/3, which it turns out is 2, 4, 6, 8/3. And that's how we might write it as a fraction. Now, 8/3 is a fraction greater than 1, so that's one of those fractions where we can turn it into a mixed number equivalent by pulling out those whole numbers. Remember unit 1, and then converting to the mixed number. The tricky part here is realizing that 2/3 of 4 means 2/3 out of each whole number. Again, I can think of this in this shortcut way, because 4 whole can be thought of as 4/1, and I can say numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator, which is fine as long as you can then go back and draw it and show that you understand what you did, not just be a human calculator. Okay, let's look at one item from the last set of problems on the worksheet. It says that we need to multiply and write our answers as fractions. This is cool. That means we're not going to have to simplify, I think. Well, we've got 7/9 of 2. We can draw it all out, but I'll be honest, at this point, it's okay to use a quick shortcut. The quickest shortcut, again, is to take that 2 whole and say, what's that as a fraction? Well, every whole number as a fraction is that number over 1. Why? Because 2 divided by 1 is 2 whole. That's its simplest form. And what do? Numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. And it's as simple as that for that set, because it asks us to show it as a fraction and not a mixed number. So, good news. All right, get to mathing, my friends.